So what's up guys, I'm Verruckt Amazing. Welcome back to another video on the channel where today we are back with the second episode of our mini-series, I guess you could call it, looking at the secrets of each and every one of our zombies maps. Today, in episode 2, we're going to be taking a deeper dive into our second ever zombies map, Verruckt. After Treyarch's first attempt in World at War with Nectar and Toten, a couple of months later in 2009, they gave us the Asylum, which was a much more improved version of what we saw start out in Nact. It contained new features, new characters, new Easter eggs, but was still, as you would expect, still only being their second ever zombies map, simple. As far as the gameplay side of the map goes, Verruckt introduced multiple new features into zombies that we hadn't seen before that would stick around for years. The first big new implementation being a power switch. In pretty much every zombies map that we have now, we see something like this in place, where you have to pull a lever, activate a switch, press a button to turn on the power, and Verruckt was the map that gave this to zombies, which went hand in hand with multiple other new features that they introduced into this map, one of those being perk machines. If you've ever played the World at War version of Nact, not the Black Ops version, not the Zombies Chronicles version, you will know that that map contained no perk machines at all, and then all of a sudden, in Verruckt, we were given multiple. We went from no perk machines to 4. This map introduced Juggernaut, Quick Revive, Speed Cola, and Double Tap, which totally changed zombies. Now, you couldn't access these perk machines until you turned on the power. Upon doing so, would not only turn on the perk machines, but it would also turn on other features that you find around the map, such as traps, another new introduction, and it would open up the starting room door. One of my favourite things about Verruckt, just because it was so unique and we've never seen it on any other zombies map since, was that there was 2 different starting rooms. So if you were playing co-op with, for example, 4 players, 2 players would spawn on one side of the map and the rest would spawn on the other. Between them was a door that would only open when you turned on the power, so this meant that until you reached about round 5, you would be separated from your teammates. Instead of having everyone spawn in together, it just gave the map a little bit of a different challenge and also an incentive to actually get to the power switch as fast as you can and reunite with them, and this actually gave the power switch meaning. I feel like in a lot of games, activating the power would mean just turning on the lights or just changing something minuscule in the map, but I think Treyarch really put a big emphasis on it in Verruckt, perhaps because it was a brand new introduction, because it would also give you access to the traps and the perk machines, and when you got access to the perks, it would change zombies forever. Because the previous map, Nact, had no perks, it meant that it was extremely difficult, and Verruckt would have been the same, but Juggernaut gave you 250 more health, which means you could take more hits from the zombies before going down. Speed Cola allowed you to reload your weapon faster and build up the barriers faster, and Double Tap increased your fire rate by 33%. These are all now standard perks in zombies, but it's crazy to think that we went from Nectar and Toten having 0 perks to all of a sudden the map after having 4, and 4 vital ones that totally changed the way you play. Being able to reload faster, being able to increase your fire rate, and being able to have more health and get a second chance if you do die was a huge change to the gameplay. If you came into zombies later on, then you perhaps wouldn't appreciate how big this was, and arguably traps were just as important as well. Using all of these features to your advantage actually made Verruckt playable, because World at War Zombies is no joke. The 2-hit down system prior to Black Ops 3 means that World at War BO1 and BO2 zombies was extremely difficult compared to how it is now, so it meant that using all of these features, perks and traps, was necessary for reaching those high rounds. Another feature that Verruckt introduced that we didn't quite see in Nectar and Toten was multiple box locations. Because Nectar and Toten was a small map, it meant that the box didn't move, so when Verruckt came out, because it was much bigger, Treyarch decided to have the mystery box change location once you'd used it, I don't know, 5-6 times, I'm not too sure what the actual number is, which meant that if you were relying on the mystery box, you couldn't just stay in one location. So Verruckt is a really weird and unique map when it comes to gameplay, because the layout means that you don't really have one main area where you can train the zombies. Normally on a zombies map, you will at least have one main room where you can run around in circles and have the zombies follow you and use that strategy to get to higher rounds. But the way that Verruckt is laid out, having 2 different starting rooms meant that 1, the beginning of the game was different for you each time. If you spawned on the left side, you had easier access to Juggernaut and Double Tap, and I also find that the easier and more favourable route, whereas if you spawned on the right side of the map, you had quicker access to Quick Revive and Speed Cola. And personally, I find the right side of the map, especially the upper level, more difficult to survive in. Just in my opinion, one of the best strategies on Verruckt to get to those higher rounds is to simply do circles around the entire map, or at least in one half of it, instead of just staying in one room as you usually would. So that's one of the reasons why I love Verruckt, because of how unique the gameplay is. Still to this day, even though Zombies has got a lot more complicated and Verruckt in comparison is really simple, for me when it comes to playing a Zombies map, there isn't a map like Verruckt. There are plenty of Zombies maps that are similar to one another, but you won't really find anything close to Verruckt. But the other reason why I love it was the atmosphere, the sound design, the ambience. This is without a doubt the scariest Zombies map we've ever had, which is crazy to think about considering, well, this was the second ever Zombies map. We've now got 30 plus. It's 15 years old and it's still the scariest Zombies map ever. What made it scary? Well, the obvious has to be its location, taking place in an abandoned mental asylum, but the sound design, as you walk around you hear all different kinds of noises. If you look out of the windows, you see you're surrounded by a forest, fog and mist, and because of how close quarters everything is, it's very easy for a zombie to all of a sudden be behind you. Taking all of that into consideration made Verruckt actually scary to play. So if that's what you're looking for in a Call of Duty Zombies map, then Verruckt is the map for you. But there are also two other main things that come into making a Zombies map, being storyline and Easter eggs, which I guess pretty much go hand in hand. Still being relatively early on into this mode's life cycle, as you would expect, Verruckt doesn't contain that many Easter eggs, but there are a few, in fact a few more than what Nakta and Toten had, which was just the one. There are two bigger Easter eggs, I would call them, on Verruckt, kind of the main ones on this map, the interactable ones. The first one is the dentist chair, where if you go up to it and press square or X, you hear a man screaming who we presume was being experimented on at this asylum when it was active. And the second big Easter egg was if you go up to the morgue, I'm not actually too sure what these are called, where dead bodies are kept, and again you press the interactive button, you hear a baby crying, which when you think about it is sickening. This was a mental asylum, yet you're hearing a baby, not a young child, an actual baby crying, which means at one point in time there was one here and, well, something went down. And the third and final Easter egg on Verruckt was, by this point, the standard musical Easter egg, where if you flushed this toilet 3 times, a song would play. Those were the only 3 interactable Easter eggs on Verruckt, but there were a few smaller storyline Easter eggs that you could find around the map, but especially here in this room you will find on the wall loads of different writing and symbols, numbers, which just reminds you that this was a mental asylum. You find the numbers 19382-406, 921. The first part refers to the date June 24th, 1938, which was when a meteor exploded in Pennsylvania, and the last part, 921, refers to the Bible verse, Jeremiah 9:21. Some of the other symbols translate to Living Dead and OHM 935, which takes you deeper into the zombies lore and the Illuminati. One of the weirder Easter eggs, and I've put this in the Easter egg section instead of the gameplay section because this is really not a playable portion of the map. Technically it is, but it's not, is there is a kind of secret room that I forget about 99% of the time, and I bet a lot of other players have, because it's not really obvious, but there is a tiny unlockable room where the only thing in there is a deployable bar that you can buy as a war weapon. This room is so weird because it's a dead end. If you're staying in here, you're 99% going to die. You're going to get trapped. Tryout could have easily just put the bar on the wall anywhere else on the map. There are plenty of places, but they decided to just have this tiny little area, which almost reminds me of the weapons cabinet in Nakta and Toten, but instead of having a cabinet, they just decided to have a small room where you can buy this unique weapon from. Other than that, this area is totally pointless. So to me, it's almost like an Easter egg. On the end of the balcony, there is a poster in German that, once translated, says, "Unattended children will immediately be sold to the circus." And all around the map, you will hear random, eerie noises, screams, voices from different people who were once here. You can hear a boy sobbing, a man screaming, a woman crying, which all just makes you wonder what went down here and adds to the horror of Verruckt. And that's of course every Easter egg in Verruckt. Obviously we've had other versions of it in Black Ops 1, Black Ops 3, which contain more Easter eggs and features, but this is just talking about the original. And finally we have the story aspect. Now, similar to Nacht being early on, there wasn't much of a story that was told to us, but it was starting to be a bit more fledged out. This time compared to Nacht, who played as 4 different random Marines. However, we know one of them was Tank Dempsey. Now, the other 3 we didn't know about until way later on, especially the 4th unknown Marine that we didn't learn about until Alpha Omega in Black Ops 4. But simply the story goes, these 4 characters were here to rescue Peter McCain. Peter McCain had infiltrated Group 935. He'd been transferred to work here at the asylum, but once he had been outed and the facility became overrun, Peter escaped. These Marines were then sent in to rescue him, but of course when they got here, Peter wasn't there, and instead they were confronted by the undead. They ended up becoming trapped here, where Tank Dempsey was eventually captured by Group 935. 2 of the other Marines, John Banana and Smokey, were killed by the undead and turned into zombies themselves, and the 4th Marine, Paxton Gunner Ridge, managed to escape and make it back to the US. And that's Verruckt's story. Relatively simple to the overarching story told in Call of Duty Zombies. And that sums up Verruckt. Simple, but good, unique and scary, an improvement on Nacta and Toten. So there we go, that is it for the second episode. Next up is Shino Numa. As always, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, drop a like rating, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.